I, the blazing life of divine wisdom, I set alight the beauty of the plains. I radiate the waters. I glow in the sun and the moon and the stars. With wisdom, I order all things right. I beautify the earth. I am the breeze that nurtures all things green. I am the rain coming from the dew that makes the fields laugh with the pleasures of life. I call up tears, the perfume of holy work. I am the yearning for good. Words of Hildegard Bingen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining me today. What's turning out to be sort of a glorious, perhaps too glorious, summer that we've been experiencing fantastic heat. And I'm grateful for everyone who's come in today here in person, as well as those who are following at home or elsewhere online. And I hope that whatever you're looking for in this space, joy and celebration, tears and repose, perhaps some words of wisdom, connecting with one another, or just simply resting with the divine, howsoever you define it. Whatever has brought you here, I hope you'll find it, and I know that you'll find a warm community. And I hope that we'll all have that feeling, that connection to the earth and to what we call the divine, that blazing life of divine wisdom of which we may be a part. We come deeper into worship as well with these words of Gwyneth Lewis. The fight for justice starts and ends with me. Truth is the sound of what I may say. Gwyneth Lewis. Let us sing our first hymn in the Green Book, number 42, Frank Claiborne's A Dream of Widening Love, hymn number 42.
From
Let us join together into a time of prayer with these words of M. Susan Milner. This is then followed by our covenant, which you'll find printed in your order of worship and appearing online. But first, these words. Eternal God, Parent, Spirit of life, we are grateful for the companionship of hearts and minds seeking to speak the truth in love. We are grateful for our heritage, for those before us whose prophetic words and deeds make possible our dreams and our insight. We are grateful for the gift of life itself, mindful that to respect life means both to celebrate what it is and to insist on what it can become. May we always rejoice in life and work to cultivate a sense of its giftedness. But may we also heed the call to transformation and to growth. May we find in ourselves the strength to face our adversities, the integrity to name them, and the vision to overcome them. May we honor and pride those heroes of our past, but may we also keep company with the fallen, the broken, and the oppressed. For in the dazzling of noonday's heat, and in the star-studded shimmering of night's rich blackness, we are them. Amen. And please read with me our covenant. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. Our reading today, I forget if it was, I think it was as early as this past Advent, maybe the year before. Star in the Jar, which I've read before, and we did have, when we first did it sort of as a story in the Advent service, we actually, or the Advent for Advent, we actually had a star that was placed in a jar, and it's been misplaced, or I don't want to give away any spoilers for those who don't remember or haven't heard the story. But in any event, I'm afraid I don't have any props today. But I do have this absolutely gorgeous book illustrated by Sarah Massini and Sam Hay. So this is Star in the Jar. My brother likes looking for treasure. You can see them out on this similarly sort of gorgeous day out in a park. Tickly treasure, glittery treasure, even trash can treasure. But one day he found something extra special. If you can see, he's found a little star just on the ground. So special, I thought it must belong to someone else. We asked the helpful girl from school, but she said it wasn't hers. We showed it to the lunch lady, but it wasn't hers either. We asked the sheriff, but he shook his head. The fairies hadn't lost it, nor had the wizards. If no one has lost it, my little brother said, that means I can keep it. My little brother loved his new treasure. He put it in a jar, and he carried it everywhere. You can see they're even taking it to the cinema. He's sitting on the toilet. He's going on, skipping on a scooter. As the day turned into the night, the little treasure got shinier, but it didn't look very happy. Then my little brother spotted something. Up high in the dark sky, there was a message. It says, lost, one small star. It's here, my little brother shouted to the sky. But the little star's friends were too far away to hear. We had to help get the star home. We tried climbing up high. We tried teaching it to fly, bouncing it into the sky. But nothing worked. Maybe the little star would have to stay in the jar forever. Then an idea popped into my head. I raced inside and looked in every cabinet and every drawer. I found flashlights and twinkling lights, book lamps and bike lights, glow sticks and headlamps. That's a very prepared family, by the way, that managed to have headlamps. And we sent a message back. Then the sky began to crackle and fizz, and the stars joined together and made a long, swirly, whirly, sparkly silver chain all the way down to our backyard. And they lifted their little friend gently back to the sky. My little brother felt sad. He'd lost his special treasure. But then he realized he hadn't lost his treasure. He'd made a friend. You can see that the night sky now says, "Thank you, friend." He'd made a friend, a forever friend who would twinkle him to sleep every night. Good night. Star in the Jar by Sam Hay and Sarah Massimi. You have a chance to share your stars, your shooting stars, wishes from stars, or joys and sorrows, or trials and your triumphs. If you want to share these publicly, you can light a candle. If you have a few words to say, come to the microphone, so those using the loop system, those who are online will be able to hear you. If you are online and you wish to convey a message, please write into the chat box. And of course, you can light a candle in silence if you wish. And as always, if you want to remain seated, holding your life in your heart, know that your presence here is enough. I came in on Friday, and I was looking at our pop-up peace gardens, which looks absolutely magnificent if you haven't gone in that direction recently. And I took a couple photos with the intention of sending it to our wonderful gardeners and people who sort of curate and care for all those gorgeous little flowers. And then I forgot to send it. So this is it's a candle of appreciation for Anne, for Joe, for Sonia, for Alvin, Naomi, everyone who's been involved in the gardening. It looks absolutely delightful. I'm really grateful that it can be this colorful presence in our city.
My first candle is for my friend Peter, who had heart surgery 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I met up with him in Chester on Wednesday, just gone, and we took 8,000 steps together, which is his aim now. And he was so much the same person. It was just good to see him again and see that he was still the same Peter I knew. I know. And my second candle is for my sister-in-law, Juliet, and she's having surgery tomorrow, and it's cysts, and I'm just really hoping that it's just going to be simple and nothing malignant, and I don't know much about it, but so I'm hoping for the best, praying for the best for her.
While we are sitting here, comfortable, well-fed, there are so many people in the world who are suffering the effects of war and starvation, thinking particularly of Gaza, the West Bank, Sudan, people suffering from floods in Pakistan. So let us remember all those who are less fortunate than us.
That is the light of one small candle with a massive ambition, sending the light to promote peace and harmony, not just in the wide vision, but between individuals as well.
That candle is for my 15-year-old son, who's had a lot of upheaval in his life over the last few days, but I'm really hoping and praying that it all works out for the best.
For all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. Let us join together in singing our next hymn, number 41, Eliza Scudder's I Cannot Lose Thee, hymn number 41.
Spirit beats, the Lord with all
Our second reading comes from the book by the great scientist Carl Sagan, entitled Pale Blue Dot. This was written at the time when the Voyager probe was sort of exploring the sort of latter part of our solar system, and I believe it had reached, I think it was Saturn at this stage. And Carl Sagan said what we should do, as it's sort of going out, capturing all these sort of untold, fantastic sort of images of space. He said what we should do is we should actually turn it around, and we should see what we look like from that position, from Saturn. And that then, of course, led to this sort of beautiful notion of what he calls the pale blue dot. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, every hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a moonbeam. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There's nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment the earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There perhaps is no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Words from Carl Sagan. Let us return now to a time of prayer with these words of the Reverend Nancy Schaefer. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said, Holy One, mystery, God. But then, thinking these weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot be addressed, she added particularities, saying, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Ancient Holy One, mystery we will not ever fully know, gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, Thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell to naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. Even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant. But then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said, although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars had been made by anyone or thing, but just luckily happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said. And then, although she hadn't imagined it this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain, breath, said one near the back. Refuge, that which holds all. A child said, water. Someone said, Kuan Yin. Then, womb, witness, great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say. And everyone sat hushed until someone said, Amen. And so let us enter into a hush, a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, personal prayer, and naming what we need to name. Thank you, Mary. Let us join together in singing our next hymn in the Green Book, number 36, John McKinnon's Starborn, hymn number 36. A message was sent down from the heavens, but I missed it because of the light pollution. Normally, I suppose, here in Britain, in Manchester, we would have missed it because of the cloud cover, but we've had absolutely spectacular clear skies during the day. I imagine a bit during the night, although I don't often see it. I'm tending to a 7-year-old. But yes, nevertheless, the light pollution has obscured this sort of glorious message being sent down from the heavens. Last week, I was actually quite fascinated when I was reflecting on this, because last week I was talking about the distinctions between wisdom and knowledge, and I used this sort of analogy about making bread. But I know as well that, for many people, wisdom is this sort of notion of, like, I suppose, ancient knowledge, or something that we know as a people, that we share through the generations. That sort of isn't necessarily things that are written down, but are conveyed through word of mouth and so forth. And then knowledge is that sort of more information and facts, and creates this distinction between the ancient days and the present age. And so when I was reflecting on this notion of light pollution, obscuring things, I was thinking about the chalice, and how so often we begin our services by lighting it with the light of knowledge, and talking about this sort of great light that illumines everything. But actually, at times, it can obscure things. If there's too much of it, then the sky above we can't witness. In some ways, perhaps our modern lifestyles can hinder us from that sort of cosmic wisdom that might be very important for us to gain meaning and understanding in our lives. I certainly wouldn't try to sort of guide myself by the stars here in Manchester, shall I say. I grew up in a house that was a few miles away from a small town, which was itself a few miles away from a small city. And so we could see quite a few stars. Nowadays, if I do perchance look up at the night sky, I can maybe see Orion's belt, maybe the Big Dipper. And interestingly enough, about 17 years ago, Catherine and I went to the Godley Observatory, which is here in Manchester in the city centre as part of the old UMIST building. We went for a tour by the Astronomical Society, and someone asked about light pollution and whether that was sort of a hindrance to what they were able to see. And they did acknowledge that was the case. They also pointed out that 100 years ago there was a lot of smoke in Manchester. So really the efficacy of the observatory wasn't hindered one way or another. It all sort of evened out whether it was too much smoke or too much light. Nevertheless, as I say, there's this message that's been sent that we've missed because of the light pollution. And this is contained in the Perseid meteor shower. Who here is familiar or has heard of the Perseids before? Who's seen them by any chance? It was something I had actually forgotten about for a little bit. And it was only sort of a random video on YouTube that made reference to it. And I thought, oh, yes, that it brings back this childhood memory. Because as I said, I was growing up in this small, in this house miles from a town, miles from a city. And we used to, my siblings and I, would go out in August. And we would have a blanket with us. We would lay it on the grass and we would lie down and we would watch the stars and watch the shooting stars and the meteors as they pass through the atmosphere. It's a beautiful memory that's in my head. Always, of course, we got along very well, but there was always some measure, I suppose, of competition for who might spot the first shooting star, who might see the most. And I remember being upset once when it seemed like I was missing them. I'd be looking there, and then I'd hear my brother or sister exclaim, "Oh, there's one," pointing in that direction. And by the time I looked over, it would have been gone. I had a chance, though. As I said, I could spot some of the bigger stars from this, but actually we weren't immune to light pollution growing up either. And it was a few years later, when I was in the south of France, that I really got to witness the night sky in a way I hadn't before, with just the Milky Way and these sort of the vibrancy of the stars piercing, somehow still maintaining this sense of darkness, and yet also this sort of visible light that's incomprehensible to what I might sort of expect to see here in Manchester. The Perseids were named because they seem to emanate from the constellation Perseus, who is named after the demigod that killed Medusa. And I like to imagine, in a sense, that it's there's all of these little snakes escaping from Medusa. But it actually comes from the tail of the comet Swift-Tuttle. And this is something, when I first learned this, it was one of those slightly sort of blow my mind things. Because I certainly imagine, meteors as being these objects from space that hit our atmosphere and then they burst into flames. And to a certain extent, that's true. But what it really is you have this huge comet, Swift-Tuttle, and its path comes through the Earth's path, and its orbit is about 133 years, and it has a very long tail. So it passed by the Earth back in 1992, and since then its tail is still going. And so what happens is the Earth, hits that tail every year as it continues on its way, and there's enough debris for it to light up the night sky very regularly at this time of year. 133 years, that's absolutely remarkable sense of time. And it only occurred to me when I was doing the math. As I said, the last time it came by was 1992, so which means the next time will be 2125. So 100 years from today, we will finally see the return of Swift Tuttle. And can you just sort of try to imagine what Manchester will look like in that 100 years, how it will have changed? What will the chapel look like? We've been in this building now for a little over 25 years. What's that going to be like? Interestingly enough, again, sort of 21-25 will mean that we'll have progressed halfway through the leasehold on this building. Just, for a sense of scale. The Perseids also occur sort of around two festivals within the Christian calendar that I find quite fascinating. One is the Assumption of Mary, Assumption sort of meaning taken up, and we of course all have this perhaps image of Mary as these divine figures sort of just ascend into the sky, wondering sort of where their feet will eventually land, like the Voyager probe out sort of into the unknown stretches of the universe. But that's not the only way that we might reflect on it. And it's fascinating to look at the Eastern Orthodox churches who don't call it the Assumption of Mary. It's called the Dormition of the Theotokos, or the falling asleep of the God-bearer. Falling asleep being this somewhat of a euphemism for dying. But of course, draws upon this beautiful image of Shakespeare sleeping perchance to dream, and what dreams may come. So it may not just simply be sort of being pulled up, but actually being allowed into some grand adventure, some grand exploration of that dreamscape that we witness every night, thanks to, of course, that dark sky. Something else that light pollution and blue light from our phones, I'm sure we're aware of, might prevent us from entering into that holy phase of sleep that we so dearly need. The other festival, though, which is slightly more relevant and connected to the Perseids, is the Feast of St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence was an archdeacon of Rome back in the 250s, at a time when Christians were still being persecuted by the Roman state. He'd been appointed by Pope Sixtus, who was then subsequently executed. And because of the practice at the time, the Roman Empire sought to claim the treasure, all the wealth of the church. So they approached St. Lawrence. They approached Lawrence and said that he needed to bring together all of the treasuries of the church to give to them. He said he could do that, but he asked for 3 days. And during those 3 days, which they allowed, and during those days, he then distributed, all of the wealth, all of the sort of, gold and silver and anything, whatever items that the church had, he gave them to the poor, to the needy, to the impoverished, and, trying to sort of divest the church of its sort of material wealth. And he'd managed that for over 2 days. And then on the third day, when the Roman guards came back to claim all of this sort of wealth, he then presented the poor to the guards, saying, "Here are the treasures. Here are the treasures of the church. You see, the church is truly rich, far richer than your emperor." Now, you might not think that went down well, and you would be right. He was similarly executed along the lines of Pope Sixtus, and because of the feast falling around the peak of the Perseids, they're sometimes referred to as well as the Tears of St. Lawrence. And you can just imagine that sort of a gorgeousness of trying to give away as much wealth of the church as possible, and then proclaiming that the poor, the destitute, the impoverished are actually the people who make the church wealthy. It's not the treasuries of gold and silver. Similarly, in what might feel like a roundabout way, when I think of these stories, when I think of this, and particularly this generosity of St. Lawrence, I'm reminded of the Bodhisattvas in Buddhism. We often think, of course, of the Buddha and people who sort of, seek and attain this enlightenment as being, possibly sort of distant or disconnected from earthly and material realities. That's a very, an element within sort of Buddhism that I think can be sort of misinterpreted by people outside of the faith. But they do have, sort of these enlightened beings that they call bodhisattvas, who are people, entities who nearly achieve enlightenment or perhaps do, but essentially forsake it, returning to the world, returning to our material world with the hope that everyone will be liberated, and sort of assisting in ways that they can. There's an image that sort of comes along with this in my mind, which is the flaming pearl in Buddhist imagery, the Sintamani, which is very often seen being chased or clutched by a dragon, and in some cases given from the dragon to one particular bodhisattva called Canon. I forget where I'd heard it, but I'd been told once about this sort of notion of the dragons, images of dragons ascending up to the heavens without the pearl and then coming back with the pearl, being this sort of wisdom and dharma, and being then brought down to earth. I couldn't find actually the reference that I have, but it's still, I think, a beautiful image in that notion, of going into the sky, going up and receiving this sort of ancient wisdom and being able to bring it back and share it with the rest of the world. So what was this message I talked about? What has modern life obscured? Is it the dormition of Mary, that we must make time for our dreams, we must have that time of darkness, for that's when the true light comes out, true wisdom and the messages that we hear in our dreams? Could be the message of St. Lawrence, remembering that there's a richness in the people that we encounter here in church and out in the world, that those impoverished are actually the people who possess the greatest wealth for us to care and support. Maybe it's the message of the Bodhisattvas, remembering that the care and the liberation of all people is our collective responsibility. All those, perhaps, and more. Amen. A few notices before we sing our final hymn. You'll see on the back of your order of worship some upcoming events. We have next weekend is Pride, so do join us on Saturday the 23rd at 10. The chapel will be open from that point. Those who are taking part in the march will be heading down to Castlefield at 11, and then hopefully setting off at midday. You can, if you want, meet us directly at Castlefield, but please let me know. Please text me or send me a message, and then what we'll be doing is, we're usually put in Castlefield Bowl initially, and then we'll get moved, shuffled from one place to another, and I can send updated messages on where we are using what 3 words, which is, I think, for me, it's been a really helpful sort of location finder in Castlefield. So do join us either here at chapel or in the march. After the march, we have a shared meal. And then Sunday the 24th, we have our Pride service, and we're welcoming our own Quinn Daly, who's going to be speaking on defending trans rights, why this is important for free religion. We then have a number of events in September. I don't have specific times or details for Heritage Open Day, but once things are sort of conveyed, then we'll include that and advertise that. I have been invited to speak or to lead the service at the Rivington Pilgrimage, which is Saturday the 27th. That includes a lunch and a stroll around Rivington. The Professor Jeff Livermore is going to give a talk, and then I'll be leading the worship at the end. And then finally, on the 28th, I'm planning to lead a climate workshop where we can explore climate grief. We can hopefully sort of reflect on sort of actionable solutions and leave with a sense of hope. Come with perhaps your grief and leave with hope. That's my hope for that on the 28th. Are there any announcements or notices from the congregation? Yes, Joe?
I provisionally mentioned in the publicity on Heritage Weekend 12:30 to 4:30.
12:30 to 4:30?
On the 14th.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Specifically matters from Heritage Open Day.
Right. Thank you.
We have to include that.
Yeah. Let us then sing our final hymn in the Green Book, number 33, Emily Lenore Lookthorne's Do You Hear, O My Friend, in the Place Where You Stand, hymn number 33. Thank you, Aaron, for that fantastic music. Thank you, Nick, for the IT. Thank you, Sonia, for helping to set up and for greeting. Do we have anyone to help with the tea and coffee today? Thank you, Carl, for the tea and coffee. And thank you to everyone for creating and sharing worship today. We close with these words of the Reverend Mark Hutchinson. Thank you, great mystery, for relationship. Thank you, planet, for touching the mystery with me. Thank you, you and you, all of you, for waking in the mystery too, an ever-opening heart, every day a new start. Supreme love, inspire this chasm of vision, taller, deeper, wider. In this great mystery, may we always remain open to the beloved of our heart. Amen.